Thank you for joining us, everyone, for another episode of Live by Heart
Today
with your hosts, Dawn Spiegelberg and Wendy R. Wolf.
Hello and welcome to the Live by Heart Today show number 13. This is a show designed to help you navigate change, uncertainty, and the new world we found ourselves in. We'll talk a little bit about science, a little bit about how our body works, a little bit about intuition, and a lot of bit about transformation. Our theme for today is ISO relationship. That is, in search of relationship. I'm excited that you're joining us today. And with me for our heart to heart is the co-host, Wendy R. Wolf, Professional Transformation Facilitator. Thanks for joining me, Wendy.
Hooray, Dawn. And you might not know, 13 has been my favorite number since I'm little. So this is just such a great show. And my favorite subject since I'm a teenager is relationships, all about relationships. And I see that very broadly, not just a partner, but our relationships with this reality and the earth and spirit and everything, ideas. So I'm really looking forward to today. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited also because Carolyn Mace, who is an author I think you're familiar with, and some other people, she has a book where she outlines the different relationships we create during our development. So in the first 7 years, we're creating relationship with, she refers to it as the tribe, and that's the community you're participating in. And then from age 8 to 17 or 15, you're creating a relationship with one other person. And that's the years when you have a best friend, right? So she outlines these beautifully. And depending on where you are in your life, you're trying to develop relationships in different ways. And it looks to me like it starts broad and then it becomes specific and then it becomes a little broad again, and then it becomes specific. So we are going to be discussing topics that include broad and specific relationship, and then shift back into more global relationship.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm pretty familiar with her work. I haven't studied her, but I've been watching what she's doing. She does great stuff. So I just wrote that down to look into. That sounds really interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I know that you have so many interesting ways that these ideas that we talk about work together with human physiology. Do you have anything you want to say about that before we jump into the world of ideas?
So I like jumping in with physiology as you make some points. So I love that you lead the discussion in discussing and talking about relationship. And then I like to say, well, one of the reasons why that's true is because of how our body works.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I love weaving it as we talk.
Awesome. So for me, like these things that I love to be in all our relations, our conversations, I started a group, Facebook group a few years ago about these very things. And I was like, what exactly do we want to talk about? And it was things like communication and intimacy and conflict resolution, creative conflict, and sexuality and spirituality. Like, and some people were like, oh my gosh, that's too many things. Like, it's just like all over the place. I'm like, well, it's just our relationship with all our relationships.
Yes. It's the human condition.
It's the human condition.
Yeah.
And I see it more broadly, but still, it's like, well, why do you have to have sex in there? Why do you have to have spirit in there? I'm just like, well, that's my world. You don't have to.
Just ignore those notes.
Right. So, whereas a lot of people are just focused on a primary relationship, a life partner or whatever you want to call it, a love relationship. And I don't feel like that's enough.
Yeah, because we have relationships with our parents. We have relationships with siblings, and they all have a different flavor. And they all affect us in different ways. So when I was growing up, I had parents, yes, but I had one influence on my life that was very strong, telling me who I was and how I should be. And it wasn't my parents necessarily telling me, oh, don't do that and don't do this. It was my older brother.
Oh,
So, right, he took a very strong parental role in my life.
yeah.
And it took a long time to really understand that. Yeah, I've got parents and then I have a brother.
Yeah, an older brother.
Yeah, my older sister did some of that too, actually, now that I think about it. Right? They formed a lot of ideas that, yeah, that, I live by right now. So
Hmm.
I have to consider them as like guardians, just like any other guardian would raise you.
Yes, yes. And you were saying, there's our family, and then there's also our friends, and our friends are so important throughout our whole life. I feel like, I mean,
Yeah.
I have friends, it's so funny, we've been doing this new thing ever since COVID. We've been having the five of us texting like every day about
Wow.
stuff. They doing this thing where they say, post a picture about this or that.
Hmm.
I'm not staying with the program very well, but I just say whatever I want to. But we've been friends since almost 40 years now.
Wow.
And that's pretty amazing. Like, they really know me, and that really helps me. And they're not the only group that I have those relationships with. I feel like that's so important.
You're right, because when we're in relationship for a long period of time, like you described with your friends, there's some freedom in that because they've seen you through lots of stuff and they're still there. They didn't just leave and say, "Whoa, she's got to work through some stuff and later, baby."
Yes. Yeah.
So that's really validating for you on your journey, for us as we grow and change, and they're growing and changing too. So it's
Yeah.
reciprocated. You're accepting them, they're accepting you. That's a tribe.
Yeah. It's really helpful. Yeah. And I also have another group that it's shorter time, but it's like, say, 25 years, only 25 years. But we get together and we sing and we dance and we play. And so
Mm,
come back to New Jersey, we're doing that. But this year, COVID. So COVID's, interrupting some of these things. And so we're working out, oh, maybe we'll do something online and whatever. But it's just you're right. It's so deeply satisfying to have those long-term relationships as
that's
a structure,
beautiful.
as partners change.
Yes.
And where I live changes, and who I think I am changes, and what I believe changes. It's nice to have some people who love me.
And we do change. I'm not the same person I was as a teenager. I'm not the person I was in my 20s. Then
Yeah.
I had children, right? And now they're growing up and we transform and we develop. And I'd like to mention that scientists talk about social bonding. So we're talking about relationship and social relationships, and coronavirus has made it difficult for people to maintain those social bonds that are so necessary. And without them, our brains aren't developing well. They're not developing in the way we're designed to develop. So this coronavirus has depressed some parts of our brain activity. And if we're not actively pursuing those social interactions in other ways, like you said, texting, zooming, right?
Right.
Then we're beginning to feel separated, and being separate from the tribe increases our stress levels.
Yeah.
And we're already stressed from coronavirus. So now
Right.
add that separation, and that's making it very difficult.
It is. My heart goes out to people. I'm an introvert. My heart goes out to people who are extroverted, and also who have different patterns of connection than I do. Like, my connections are very, very more and more over the decades, more and more consciously with nature and with spirit.
Mm.
And that doesn't go away for me. And so I'm just really fortunate in that at this time. It doesn't make me like popular at parties, but
That's so funny.
coming
So
in handy.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I'm an extrovert by nature, and I love communicating with people. And I found over the years that being in nature and doing, things for myself has sustained me.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that when I go to the grocery store, I don't tell jokes to the cashiers and I don't, willingly ask how people are doing. And, I'll even be driving down the road. And if I pull up at a stop sign and there's a guy in a car next to me with his window down, I'll yell out the window, "Hey, nice boat." Right? Like, I love connecting with people.
You
So,
do.
so while that's wonderful, having that fallback of
Yeah.
nature, having a fallback of, drinking tea is amazing for me. It's just amazing. So I recommend
Yeah.
people find the thing that helps them feel connected deep, deep inside.
Yeah. 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 And for me, like you say, just drinking tea, I'm so blessed. I'll show you. I'll show you. It's actually pouring out right now, and I have the door closed. But this is my porch. I'm so blessed, and I love to be on it. I love to be
Ah,
on it, right? Because
yeah.
I'm like, I'm by myself, but I'm like, hi trees, hi birds, and I have like bird seed, and I'm like calling the birds over and giving them water, and the squirrels come, and so.
We have a lot more in common than you realize because I have a parrot and I do the same thing. I give her seed and I call her over and she sits on my lap and we have conversations.
Yes, it's so sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we think of in terms of all our relations and all our relationships, I feel like I'm hoping this conversation encourages all of us to be connecting in as many ways as we can in the web of life so that we get those needs, those physiological needs that you're talking about met.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in and you mentioned the web of life and I want to give people an image regarding this web and the web reaches out in this horizontal way, right? Connecting people to people. But I also want to mention that there are other connections and those are the vertical connections, right? Our connection to spirit, our physical connection to the earth. And when we pay attention to both of those, and you mentioned being in nature, right? Nature is very grounding and it helps us feel like we're at home. And that's so important for our physical body to decrease the stress, to shift us out of sympathetic nervous system responses into parasympathetic because we need to renew our energy stores. We need to feel full. And that's so
Mhm.
important. So I encourage people to make sure they're I'll say it again, finding the things that replenish them.
Yes. Yes. And I would say, and validate. Like, I feel like for a lot of us, it's very helpful. I mean, it's very helpful to feel seen and heard and known and
Yeah.
accepted. And, uh, it helps when we're little to get all filled up with that, but still, it helps to keep getting it and giving it. And we can do it in nature. Like, I really like doing it in nature because I don't get invalidated, and with spirit. But in our relationships, we can do that all the time, lightly at the grocery store and more in depth as we go on. I feel like that's a very important part of relating to people.
Yes. We celebrated a birthday yesterday. Yesterday was my husband's birthday. And one way I relate to people now, I live in a house with men, right? They're guys. So, one deep connection I have with them is baking. So, I made a peach cobbler yesterday
Oh,
on the
nice.
occasion of the birthday. And boy, don't you know, those boys love me.
Uh-huh.
So, I have my own ways of connecting.
You want seconds? Yum, yum. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And intimate, like for me, intimacy, I've always known myself since I'm a teenager as like an intimacy hound. And I never thought like I would get enough, or too much. And so now in my work is intimacy all day long. And also my capacity for connecting like with nature and with spirit and with, babies or puppies that go by is just so high that I'm actually like overflowing with intimacy these days, it's beyond my reckoning. I don't remember if we talked about this in this show, but like I never imagined that like I would be full of my need for connection, like real connection, like heavy, deep, real for the body togetherness. Like it's real. It's not theoretical love. It's not the experience of oneness theoretically. It's like a body experience. That's what I call intimacy.
Yeah.
And people call sex. Yeah, sex can be intimate. Hopefully it is. I like it that way. But all the things to be really connected, like with a baby, you know how like babies are like all there a lot of times, and it's just like, hello, let's just be together for a moment while your mommy's, doing the grocery line.
Yeah. You're talking about presence.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in presence, right, when you're living in this moment, everything is alive, and all of your awarenesses are occurring, and you're giving them, I'll say, equal weight, right? So your eyes are taking in information, your ears are taking in information, your skin is taking in information, and it's all valid. It's all being taken in, and it's validating that you're alive. It's validating you as a human being. So that experience is a connection. It is a connection, and I need to mention this because it's important. You're describing physiologically the production of a particular hormone. So when you're feeling this, and you call it intimacy, and that is a full-on experience, right? Experience everything right now. You're talking about the hormone oxytocin.
I was thinking it might be that.
Right? Oxytocin is amazing because it is the hormone that bonds us. It is the hormone that connects us together. And what's fascinating is people who have trouble distinguishing facial expression, right? Like they don't recognize it. And those people tend to be autistic in nature, right? It's been found that they have less amounts of oxytocin on a regular basis. So when we talk about connection, we're talking about a hormone specific to this connection, a hormone specific to you feeling like you are a part of and a valid contributing member of a community. And when you have this for yourself, when you have this relationship, right, that you are in fact a person who contributes and you have a purpose, and that you're making good relationships with other people, then you're also feeling it in return. So it goes both ways, and oxytocin is the hormone that's responsible for that.
That's amazing. And like, it's like the word I want to say is that I matter, and that our relationship matters. I don't know, mattering seems to come up for me around this conversation. So oxytocin, thank you for telling me this, because I had it in my head, and I'm sure it's this too, nursing, hugging, snuggling, holding, like that's oxytocin, but it goes beyond the physical to actual presence together that's not touching.
Yes. And people who have high levels of oxytocin are people who will stand up for and protect the tribe. Like if there is some sort of threat, they are more likely to step in and take action to, keep everyone safe. So it's an amazing hormone. It's not just, for feeding your newborn infants.
Right. Or and connecting with your partner and your children. So it connects the tribe. It connects,
Yes.
it's about connection. And because it's about connection, it feels like love, it feels like intense,
Yeah.
beautiful love. And then of course I'm going to stand for what I love. Like
Yes.
Mother Lion.
Yes. And I've recorded some podcasts about this in particular, and I believe it's actually one of the hormones responsible for our vertical connection. And when you say love and compassion, right? And the Buddha and Christ talk about loving and being compassionate in the world, I believe it is the hormone that allows us to experience spirituality. It allows us to rise above the problems and experience the oneness of ourselves with people and ourselves in nature.
Well, it makes sense to me because, when we put it together like that, I never thought, because I had it in my head, it was like a physical connection hormone. But when I noticed the feeling in my system of the connection of intimacy that's real for my body, and then how I experience it when it's delicious with nature or with spirit, it's the same in my
Yes.
body.
Yes. I'd like to mention briefly before we take a break that um, we are transmuting, and transmuting means to take something that doesn't have form and putting it into a physical form. And
Mm-hmm.
so oxytocin is one of those things that is a hormone, and you can produce it by thinking about intimacy, by connection. So you think it, and then it becomes a physical thing because your body produces the hormone. And so what's also true is you can produce the hormone, and then your thoughts and your thinking and what you believe produces the connection. So it's this from formless to formed, formless to formed, and back again. That is the beauty of how we live in the world, right? It's the rain that's actually water in the rivers that goes to the ocean that then evaporates and becomes rain, right? It's this
Mm-hmm.
transmutation. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
And when we are in a positive cycle of living in that hormone and having it be produced, then like I go into the, I'm having an intimate conversation with my partner, let's say, and it's so sweet, let's say, and then I run into the store to get something. I'm going to be in that vibration. I'm going to be in that
Yeah.
experience, and I'm going to be more available to be connecting with the people in line and the people. So, and then it keeps going around.
Oh, so did you mean you just meant to be more in connection with people in the line and more extroverted?
Intimacy isn't extroverted to me.
It's a good distinction, right? Because introverts tend not to speak with people in the line at the grocery store. You're right, they don't connect in the same ways with people.
Yeah, I
It's
connect a
just
little. I'm socially appropriate.
yeah. It's a question worth looking at, right? Maybe
Yeah,
introverts
I
have.
make a little bit of small talk with people, and I love the dogs and the babies, right? Because they're right there with me most of the time. It's
You're
the other
right.
people, they don't want to be right there with me. That's no fun at all. Like that's the
Ah,
difference. Like who wants to talk to somebody who's not there, and somebody
ah,
who's like it's like pulling teeth to talk to them, or like right? Like I like intimacy. And
yeah.
intimacy doesn't usually happen in a cocktail dress talking to people. And when
Oh,
it does,
really?
I'm
Does for
happy.
me.
Good for you. For me, like it's true. I come like that, and I'm more coming like that, and I'm a more of a clearing to invite it. But like in general, I just don't want to just talk to people, blah blah blah.
Ah,
You notice I like talking to you.
yes. And I should clarify, when I'm in a cocktail dress, I like toe dip. So I'll go around and I'll have a conversation and I'll say, the beginning polite things to say, and then I'll ask a question and see, are they willing to be intimate or not? And then. And if they're not willing, then I don't push it. I'm just like, oh, They don't want to have a conversation right now. Fine. And at cocktail parties, I get deep conversations going, right? Like, what's your purpose in life? I will ask people, what's your purpose in life? And some people are willing to go there and some people aren't.
Yeah.
With that in mind, let's take a break.
Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Thank you, We Are Storically, for making this show possible.
And we're back talking about intimacy and relationship. ISO, in search of relationship. And we've got lots of different relationships, lots of different levels of connection. Wendy, what else would you like to talk about with regard to us being in a relationship?
Well, I'm looking forward to more shows about relationship. I'm so excited. We've talked about doing that, so I just want to let that cat out of the bag. Something that comes to mind now when talking about intimacy is, as far as like dedicated inner circle friends that I'm very connected with, there's a limit to how many I can have of those. I feel like people like I'm really deep with, and really, people I can call in the middle of the night, people I can, have a breakdown and say, I really need help right now. Those kind of people, the inner circle. And then I like to think in terms of, from there, of like play friends. I like to have a lot of play friends, and I think in terms of that, like who I want to get a bunch of people to go hiking or to go to a party or whatever like that. So I've since I'm a teenager, I've been thinking in terms of like who's in the inner circle and how do we care together, like we're like a team. I have these pictures, we're like a team. And then from there, like who can I can be intimate with, but like, just every now and then, whatever, go to dinner or whatever. And then who just want to play with it. They don't really want to go deep with me or whatever, but we can be in the same community and we can still play. So anyway, that's one of the paradigms I've been living through, and how I do it has changed over time, but I like the distinctions, and I just wonder if you have anything like that.
Yeah, I have a couple questions about that. You talked about, and I think of it like a bullseye, right? Like if you're in the center, you have a core group of people that you can really be comfortable, intimate with, and then there's another circle of friends that are a little further out, right? You get together, you play and have fun, right? And then there are people even further out, and then there are people not even in the circle at all,
they're not on the target.
So not on the target. I'd like to know for you, what's optimal with the amount of time you spend with the people who are on your target? So do you find that you need to connect with your inner circle frequently, or is that a less frequent? Like, and I think it's important for people to recognize what they need for themselves. So I recall getting information and being so excited about something and just wanting to call my best friend, right? Like, oh, guess what? And I don't have that same need anymore. It's not the same way. Like I like to talk with people, but I don't get something and then just have to, connect with them.
Yes. I do know you though to show up with me or with a group and be like, I just discovered that, like you still like to share your little insights and your discoveries and your breakthroughs. It's so cool because that's what you do when you share. Just like, I discovered this. It's so cool.
But that discovery could be like, I discovered it last week, right?
Right. You can wait.
And I do love sharing, but I don't have that, I've got to tell somebody right now.
Yeah.
Impulse.
Yeah. I've also changed. I was very, very committed, say through my later teens and 20s, to my core group, what I call what used to call my intimates. And I used to have more than the average amount. I'd have like 4 or 5 people. That's a lot to be intimate with. And I invested a lot of time and energy there. And out from there as well. And in my late 20s, early 30s, we just have a lot of like singing and dancing parties and a lot of sharing circles, a lot of circles. So I was much more, even though I was an introvert, I was much more related to people. And then two things have happened. One is that I've been living with chronic illness for decades. And my amount of energy available has gone so precipitously down that I just don't have the energy to put into relationships that I used to have. That's really affected my relationships and my experience of relationship. The good news is, the second part is I've deepened much more spiritually and much more like in my vertical, you would say my vertical relationships have deepened a lot because they don't require anything of me except to show up. And so that, and they're available whether I'm laying in bed or, laying by the side of a stream or whatever. Because to invest in relationships it takes time, money, energy, work. It's energy, and I didn't really realize that, say, in my 20s. It was just like profligate. It was just like invest in relationships. And so what's happened for me over time as my spiritual deepening has gone along, I feel the call, because I'm a mystic, I feel the call to go deeper there and invest less and less in my physical relationships. I still have them. They're still wonderful. Fortunately, I've invested so much in my relationships that I can afford to skim a lot for a while, because I'm still really, I've invested so heavily that there's still a lot to gain and to give easily in those relationships. But that's how it's changed. It's changed for me very much.
That's beautiful. And I'd like to point something out very important. And I'm going to jump back into talking about bodies because that's my dealio. And I love talking about bodies. If you are struggling with chronic illness, that chronic illness is taking a lot of energy from your physical body to manage.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So
your energy stores are depleted.
Yeah.
And of course, it makes perfect sense that you're not going to have energy to continue developing relationships in the same way that you did when you had energy reserves, when you could go out and party with your friends on Friday and then rest and recover on Saturday so that you could get together again on Saturday night, right?
Yep.
And so your ability to hold energy in your body and then exhaust that energy and then replenish it shifted.
It sure did.
When you had when you're experiencing the chronic illness. And so I'd like to encourage people that if they're suffering with chronic illness, that it's important to honor what's happening in the physical body, to rest when you need rest, and to work to shift and continue healing so that you can replenish your energy stores. And that's one thing that living by heart can do for you. When you live by heart, you shift your energy, you're changing your physiology from a sympathetic and more stress-induced physical existence and moving into the parasympathetic, so that when you live by heart, your body is able to begin the process of healing itself by holding more energy.
Yes. And it's just so amazing because for so long in that chronic illness experience, which I didn't know what it was at first, I was fighting it. And I was used to just being profligate with my energy, and I was not used to these crazy limits that I would bounce up into, and I didn't understand about all that. And so learning to manage that has been very helpful. And then also not resisting it, not judging it, not fighting it, but instead learning to dance with it is a whole different thing. And I keep getting healthier, which is such a blessing, but it's not done yet. And just accepting that is so helpful instead of oh, it should be different. So I have a relationship with, my body in different capacities. So anyway.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think we have on our list to discuss struggle and resistance in a future show
Yes.
because we all have struggles and we all have resistance. And those lessons, those experiences, they can be different for us. And we'll be talking more about that
Yes.
at a later time in future episodes.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for joining me today, Wendy. I so appreciated your time.
Thank you.
Listeners, if this message spoke to you, please tell us what's on your heart. Leave us a comment. And for more information about how you can live by heart, please go to livebyhearttoday.com. Also, like and follow this page and turn on the notifications so you don't miss a single episode. We air every Thursday at 4:44 Pacific. Next week, we'll continue the conversation about relationship. From our heart to yours, creating a better tomorrow because we live by heart today.
And that concludes this portion of
Live by Heart today!
Thank you for watching. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Thank you, We Are Storically, for making this show possible.